What's up, DeGroote? Welcome to your weekly NBA Bizcast, where we provide you with the information that you need to know. We provide weekly highlights in tech, business, sports, and any other interesting stories. Listen while you work, study, drive, or on your break. Today is Thursday, June 13th. We're going to jump right into it with Talk with Sports.
Well, I'm a little tired. I'm going to apologize if I sound sluggish on this podcast because we had our first triple OT game of the playoffs last night. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals lived up to its billing. Chicago and Boston, we all knew they were evenly matched, but apparently they're a little too evenly matched because nobody wanted to end the game for a while. For people who didn't stay up until past midnight to see the winner, Andrew Shaw deflected a Roosevelt shot from the point in the third overtime. Chicago takes game 1 of the series 1-0. 4-3 was the final score. Actually, Boston was up 3-1 late in that game and gave up 2 goals in the last 8 minutes. I'm sure a lot of Leafs fans took some solace in that. But it looks like it's going to be a great series, and we haven't really had a chance to talk about it because we've been off the air for a couple of weeks. But this might be the two best teams in the National Hockey League here playing for best of 7 to win the Cup, which is kind of nice to see.
Just to reiterate my hate for Chicago, that goal off of Shaw was off his ass. It wouldn't even, that was no skill involved.
Even that third goal deflection was pretty weak.
Yeah, this third goal was also off the skate of, I think, Seidenberg or Ferentz. It hit someone in the skate.
It hit Ferentz off the skate. Oduya put it off the skate of Ferentz.
Yeah, so these guys were getting outplayed and dominated, and they were getting the fortunate bounces. They were getting outplayed and dominated.
And Tune, Boston didn't get any lucky bounces in sweeping the Penguins?
They got a couple bounces.
A couple?
A couple bounces.
A couple?
A couple bounces here and there. What I will say is this: in the overtime periods, they definitely were a strong team. During the first and the second, they were so intent. The first goal was a perfect microcosm of the whole game. What he calls, I think it's Oduya's coming in on Krejci and tries to murder him.
Jalmerson tried to hit.
Tries to murder him, completely fails. It entirely fails, and it was an easy pass out in front of the net and ends up on Lucci's stick after a second quick pass, and he just that was the quickest snap I've ever seen from that guy. He's got softer hands than I sometimes give him credit for.
Oh, he's a very skilled player. Guy who gave him a pass, Nathan Horton, looked like he dislocated his shoulder in the third period. He might be out for the series. That could change the complexion of things.
I think it was also kind of no one's talking about it, but Gregory Campbell broke his leg, and he was that. The fourth line was legit. They were scoring goals and disturbing people, and he broke his leg in Game 3 last season against Pittsburgh, or Game 4.
Blocked a shot in Game 3 and a penalty kill.
And I think now if they lose Horton too, I feel like that's significant enough changes to their lineup that I don't know what's going to actually. The fourth line may not get as much time.
Well, the interesting thing now with a long Game 1, if this becomes a war of attrition and Boston's bench starts to deteriorate quicker than Chicago's, they almost played 2 hockey games last night. That is an intense way to start a series. And if Boston doesn't have the same type of bench depth, they might really start to feel this later on as the series goes deep. A lot of people thinking this is going a minimum of 6 games. I think Game 2 is big. If Boston can get a split going back home to Beantown, or if Chicago goes up 2, that could change the series drastically.
I just felt, Tuukka Rask was kind of ridiculous last night. There's 4 goals scored on him, but he was still just a ridiculous.
I think he had a career save night as well for him. Something like 56? Almost 56 shots.
Yes, he's honestly on another level. Corey Crawford, yes, he did play well as well, and he did bounce back like he always seems to do. But right at the beginning of the game, he always seems to be confused as to the start time of the game. He doesn't know the game's going to start. The first shot of the game, I know he hits him up around the collarbone. It was hard to control. But he kind of is looking around all jittery. There were a couple wraparound attempts where he was just kind of lucky that the guy completely didn't go near post. So they were trying to wrap around and go far block or far side or 5-hole. He was confused for the first 6 minutes of the game.
I'll tell you what, though, if I got to give a Conn Smythe right now, it's probably to Rask.
Yeah.
The last 2 series, Rask has been unbelievable. I mean, he almost single-handedly beat Pittsburgh himself.
Yeah.
Speaking of guys who might need to single-handedly turn a series around, we have the other finals going on right now. And is LeBron going to stem the tide? Because let me tell you something. The Mighty Heat got shellacked in Game 3. What was that, a 36-point differential?
That was
Popovich's San Antonio boys getting business done?
I'm going to stand up and defend LeBron, Raymond, James here, because he's still the best player in the entire world right now. The problem what had happened was Greg Popovich did what they did to him a few years ago, which is they said, here are some completely open shots. And even though LeBron James can make shots, I think the fact that he was so wide open on some of these outside shots, he doesn't like outside shots, was really getting to him. And then once he'd missed 8 or 9 shots in the paint, and now he's taking his outside shots, he was having a lot of difficulty scoring. But I think the actual bigger problem, yes, you shut down LeBron James, but you still paid what you paid the rest of these people for. Like Dwayne Wade was just embarrassingly bad. Like, I'm talking about shots that, like, I would take up. Like, he's not even hitting backboard. Like, he's shooting and he's not touching backboard, not touching anything. Chris Bosh, he was rebounding a little bit, but he was actually getting it going, but they have no respect for him, so they didn't give him the ball. Like, at one point, I think he hit 3 or 4 straight jumpers from the outside. He was doing whatever he wanted against Thiago Splitta whenever he was in. But they basically were just like, it's Chris Bosh. He's not a real player, so let's not give him the ball. Mike Miller was 5 for 5 from 3. Did he get the ball? No, they give the ball to Wade or Bosh, who are having the worst shooting nights of their lives.
It's almost like the antithesis of the old Jordan rules when the Chuck Daly Pistons used to focus on Michael Jordan when they play Chicago in the playoffs above all else. It's almost like, you know what? We'll live with Chris Bosh and LeBron James shooting from the outside. You guys want to rely on 18-footers and above? You guys go ahead. You're not going to do is you're not going to penetrate easily. We're not going to give you the easy lanes. That's why maybe I think Spoelstra's a little outclassed here. Popovich has been around. Popovich has his rings. I just think the veteran presence of San Antonio, they're not going to be intimidated by this series. Where I thought you saw later in the series against the Pacers, some of those young Pacers looked like they had a bit of trouble closing out those big games. Game 1 they should have won, didn't. Game 7 they probably didn't have much left in the tank. I don't think you're going to see that from San Antonio. This is a team that's been there before. They know how to play close games and how to win close games. And Popovich is a master technician.
On the flip side of that, let's keep in mind that we cannot expect Gary Neal and Danny Green to hit 14 threes again. Like, that's ridiculous. They were shooting like 70% from beyond the arc. Gary Neal at one point was just like, he was just like, this is a video game. He was just running around. Anytime they gave him the ball, he would just jump and shoot from wherever he was. He hit 3 straight threes to close out the first half, or 3 straight shots, 2 threes and a 2, where he had no business hitting them. One of these running full speed, he stops jumping sideways and hits a 3. This man was undrafted and averages 9 points a game. He put in, 25? Danny Green at almost 30? 28 points?
Tuned in. Where amazing happens isn't just a marketing slogan. It's the truth.
I'm just saying,
the truth.
You can't expect these guys to maintain that. So once these guys come down to earth on regular shooting, then it'll go back to low-scoring game, and that's going to favor LeBron James in the last 5 minutes of the game, closing the game out.
Well, I'm picking the Spurs to finish this series. Who else has everybody got?
I got LeBron in 7.
LeBron in 7.
Yeah.
Not the Heat, but LeBron in 7.
The rest of those guys are being lazy right now. Like, honestly, if I'm Eric Spoelstra, I'm going to change my lineup. I'm going to put Dwayne Wade on the bench early in the second. I'm going to have Norris Cole out there for speed. Mike Miller's shooting the lights out. And if he's not, Ray Allen's been also shooting really well. And I'm just going to have those 2 shooters come out. And I'm going to actually respect Chris Bosh and play 2-man game with LeBron and Chris Bosh, because that's going to force the defense out every single time Chris Bosh hitting those shots. And maybe LeBron can finally get some space.
I think what they're missing is a Patrice Bergeron type presence down the middle. That's what they're really missing.
Just someone to just control the game and win every face-off possible. Someone, I feel like that guy's got to be cheating in face-offs too.
He's just the man. He's the man. He's going to do it in Sochi too. You know it.
He's cheating on face-offs. You can't be that good at face-offs. Anyway, we're all obviously going to be watching tonight. I believe it's at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
NHL and NBA are actually pretty nicely set up right now. I think there will be one overlap game.
The NHL's taking 2 nights off, I think, right? They're not playing until Sunday?
Saturday, I believe.
Are they on
I'm
Saturday?
not sure because
okay.
game.
I thought their schedule got all messed up.
Game 5 of the NBA Finals is going to be Sunday. I know that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
there will be some overlap coming up, but for now we're still lucky. 1 game a night, so we can still spend some time
not
studying.
And quick around before we change to the next subject. I got the Hawks winning in 7. Who does everybody have?
Hawks in 6.
Oh, wow, real aggressive.
Yeah. I just hate Boston that much.
I'm gonna have to call Boston at 7.
Who's G thinking about?
In all honesty, I haven't watched any of this, but I feel like just listen to you guys. I'm watching the game live. Like, I have no clue what happened, but the way you guys described it, I'm just like, wow. You know what? I'm just gonna listen to this podcast rather than watch a game.
The next podcast, when we start breaking down the IPL playoffs, then G's gonna take over, and he's gonna.
Well, I don't even watch IPL.
Oh no.
I watch Muay Thai. That's about it.
We got to get a UFC card on one of these podcasts. We've got one coming up on Saturday, I think, right?
Is there UFC on Saturday? There's too many UFCs. I lose track all the time. What are they on? UFC 576?
We're gonna have
12986. Yeah.
We're gonna have DeGroote UFC 1 on Saturday. Me versus Dalton in the birthday bonanza extravaganza. And if you guys aren't coming out, seriously, fix your calendar, change your plans, come out on Saturday night.
It's gonna be absolutely insane.
Pod versus Dalton.
Absolutely
That's a fight
insane.
All right, it's a good time to move on to Tunde with Tech.
So we're gonna talk about a couple things today. One is a slightly controversial topic with the Xbox and the PlayStation now finally unveiling their information. The second is a small press conference, same day actually, by Apple, introducing some of their new product. So Apple introduced a new MacBook Air, and the reason I want to bring it up is because it has, Apple claims 12 hours of battery life on the 13-inch MacBook Air, and around 11 hours battery life on the 11-inch MacBook Air. I think over 10 or 11 hours of battery life. And typically, Apple's claims for their laptops have been close. Like 90%, 80 to 90% of what they claim is what you actually get. So I think this is actually going to really change what people do with like portable computers. Because in the past, I think there's people in our program who carry around tablets. I've seen people with iPads in their classes, and they're just like, oh, my laptop only lasts an hour and a half or 2 hours. Like, if you can get a laptop that reliably lasts 12 hours, I feel like this might actually be something good for the computer market, which I thought was kind of dying. Everyone was going towards tablets recently.
I gotta ask though, is it 12 hours with full brightness and internet going, or am I just like open on Word on the lowest dim, and I'm typing out 5 words a minute kind of thing, like barely using it?
So the use case the kind of standard use case they described is about 45% brightness, so you're not on the dimmest setting. Internet's enabled. And web browser and Word document enabled, but no video is enabled, no audio is enabled, which I still think is unmatched what you do in the school.
That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So
why can't you bring your charger to school?
I don't know.
Like that dumbfounds me. Only get an hour and a half on my computer. Just bring your charger. Anyways, that's pretty fascinating because you're right. Like I have a pretty small backpack too. Sometimes carrying around the giant Apple charger can be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's also kind of crazy because it shows that basically there's been a lot of rumors that Apple controls how fast everything moves. And so Intel just released these processors, and the first people to have an optimized solution and already a computer with it ready is Apple. So it basically seems like if Apple didn't complain about battery life, we might actually not have gotten this innovation, which is crazy that they're now driving innovation even in PCs, and everyone's PCs, because of their work with Intel. Anyway, I just think it's kind of neat. I want a new computer. I don't think I could carry a computer that small though. Like the screen's still too small, 13 inches. Even though it's like all day battery life, I still want to get a bigger computer than that.
I just feel like I'm going to break an air every time I pick it up. Like that classic Will Smith line in Men in Black when he gets the cricket. Man, I'm going to feel like I'm going to break this thing. And they almost feel too fragile, like you're afraid to touch it. But from what I've played with, they're great computers. They turn on quick enough. The processing speed's incredible. I don't know. I see nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, we'll see what it does. Like, it's not like this product was already a top-notch product. But I wonder if we're just going to see an epidemic of them now that you can get the first true all-day computing. The second thing I want to talk about was the same day as Apple had their Worldwide Developer Conference, was the Gaming X, or Electronic Entertainment Expo, I think is what it stands for.
E3.
Basically, it's where all the games come to play. And they announced a new Xbox, a new PlayStation. The Xbox One coming in November for about $500 starting price. Includes the Kinect in the box. Also some fancy TV cable box functionality if you live in America, which is terrible. And it also includes a new system for controlling games, which prevents you from reselling, lending to your friends, you buying used, or basically doing anything other than being the original purchaser of the game.
Just to step back for a second. I agree the $500 is very steep, but I do have to acknowledge that at least the Kinect is built into that price, whereas before it'd be like $300 Xbox and I think like $150 to $200 for a Kinect. So really, if you think about it that way, $500 doesn't seem that bad. But I would consider the fact that many people probably wouldn't have bought the Kinect for the 360, so the price jumps up.
Last thing, I own a 360 and I do not own a Kinect. I have never once danced in my living room. I've never once played imaginary tennis or
You're not waving
boarding.
your arms around wildly at absolutely nothing.
No,
Yeah, no.
none of that. I've never done that, and I have no desire to do that. So to ask me,
You don't want to pretend like you're doing fitness in your basement by just leaning left and right and claiming you just got a good workout in.
Yeah, no. Honestly, you're asking me to give you $150 for something I don't want.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of upset about it. But the bigger thing that's mostly upset gamers, and I want to get all your takes on this, is so when you buy an Xbox game, it will come with a disc, like a computer game used to come with. And you put it in only to install the game. The disc is not required to run the game. The disc after that is useless. You cannot give the disc to your friends. You cannot sell the disc to a store. You cannot give the disc to anyone other than yourself. And then every time you're playing, the Xbox checks the internet to make sure this is really you, your account, and the game is verified. If you lose internet for greater than 24 hours, you can no longer play the games.
This Sony fanboy over here is kind of just concealing his smile.
You're smiling pretty
Well, our listeners can't discern that. You know, we are on YouTube, but we're not exactly at that stage yet. They can't see how gleeful I am about this. I think it's ridiculous. I'm going back to the days of it's part of the community. If you think about the gaming culture, and part of the fun back in the day growing up was trading games and sharing games, and that's an integral part of what we grew up with. Way back in the SNES days or the Genesis days, when you guys remember taking out the consoles, having to blow in and everything. And, everybody had their special blow technique before they put it back into the machine. But that's an integral part of the gaming experience, and I think they're missing the boat here, not necessarily from a revenue perspective, but more from a perception perspective. Sony's already put out a viral video where they demonstrate how to share used games with your friends. It's a 20-second video, and it shows one Sony employee handing over the game case to another Sony employee, upon which he goes, "Yay!" It has 9 million views in a week. Like, Xbox is getting slaughtered on this. It's just, this is a really weird hill to die on.
Even if you only share, say you buy 10 games and you only share one of them, that's still like that one game that you can't give to your friend. Or even for those guys who go, you know what, I've got these 10 games I haven't played in a couple years, I can trade them in, get some money back for it, buy a new game. And that whole, you can't even reinvest your money back into new video games, which is what a lot of people did, right?
So what they are proposing, and the system is not in place yet, is that they want the actual game manufacturer, the publishers, not manufacturers, publishers, to make deals with stores. So the way it's going to work is, let's say I'm Activision or EA. I say to GameStop, okay, GameStop, for Xbox One games, every Xbox One game that comes back to the store, you enter it to your system, we'll sell you a new license or a new subscription number for you selling a new customer, and you pay us. So the store might pay you $10 for the game. They have to then pay $10 to Activision to get the game reactivated, and they can resell that game for $45 or $50. But it's making sure that the game publisher controls who can buy the used games, and they get paid every time the game is resold. Whereas before, let's say you bought a game and you didn't want it, and let's say you on eBay you privately sold it to G, you made $30 out of the $50 you originally spent, but the publisher got no money. Now the publisher will always get money, no matter how many times you move it around.
It's crazy because they're introducing this new revenue model, and they really want to control the way the sale of games go back and forth, used games, and it's just going to make things way more expensive and way more complicated. And I feel that it's a terrible idea.
And what have we seen in industries where publishers insist on getting their cut, but do it in a way that is perceived as screwing over their consumers? People will find other ways, they'll find other sources, and they'll find other avenues for getting their entertainment dollar to go as far as it can. And the same thing happened with the music industry out of the Napster fallout. And I know it's not exactly analogous, but people will find ways to get their hands on music without having to go through the very deliberate and very unambiguous extortion methods that these publishers are asking for. And at some point, it needs to become, you need to have kind of a break-even point. Like, how much is it worth making sure that we get our cut if it ends up affecting our revenues anyways, because people decide they're going to take their entertainment dollar elsewhere, say, to Sony?
Yeah, I think there's still some room, because it's not till November, to backtrack on some of this. But as it stands, it's basically the most consumer-hostile product announcement I've ever heard.
And I think that's kind of the funniest part about this is, everyone's excited for Xbox. We're finally releasing a new product. It's been something like 8 or 9 years since they put out a new console. 2005. So everyone's excited, new console coming out. Not a single person is talking about the quality of the gaming that we might expect or the added on features. It's just people are only talking about the negatives and how much they truly dislike what they're doing. And, you know, coming from marketing class, sitting in that, this is devaluing their brand. It's hurting their brand. It's, this is going to have a very negative consequence. I think they'll probably have sales because there will be people who it won't matter to them.
Some people won't know. Some people won't know until afterwards.
And people are brand loyal. I mean, I bought a PlayStation 3 simply because I've been a Sony kid pretty much my entire life. I had PlayStation 2. That was just a natural progression. But it is going to hurt them. What we want comments on our video. What do you guys think? We know we got a lot of gamers in the program. We also want to know if DeGroote should decide to run our new annual FIFA 14 program tournament on PS4 or Xbox One. That'll be up to you, but it really is academic because I'm just going to destroy all you guys anyway.
Oh, yes.
Why don't we have Nintendo 64?
N64. We need a GoldenEye tournament. If somebody brings an N64, puts it in the student lounge, I will be there all day and probably fail out of this program.
In breaking news, after N64 was installed at DeGroote School of Business, grades plummeted by 90%. No, but so on the flip side, like Alex already mentioned, PlayStation brilliantly saw this coming, and they're doing the exact same strategy that Microsoft actually used to defeat them in the last generation. The last generation, Microsoft launched a year earlier. PlayStation will launch probably about a month earlier than the Xbox. Microsoft also launched for $100 cheaper. The PlayStation will be $100 cheaper, and Microsoft is having Sony's having a far simpler system with discs you can actually use, resell, reinstall. And they're not leaving the publishers out. What they've said is, if you're still a greedy publisher, you can still get your money by locking out certain features, which is what they did on this generation. So, for instance, on this generation, Alex and I both know this, playing on our sports games. If you buy a used copy of a sports game, like a Madden or a FIFA, you won't get the full online content until you pay $4 or $5 or some kind of extra fee for a little EA Online pass. So EA was okay, fine, you can resell the game as many times as you want, but every time someone wants to play online, which is the point of buying this console or this game, we get an extra $5. So you can still get some money in the secondary market without arbitrarily limiting all multiplayer and all sharing and all community aspects.
And I mean, they're still charging for Xbox Live, right?
Yeah, and
So
PlayStation
just another way
PlayStation
to
Plus.
still get money. Yeah.
So,
Do you know what's funny? This actually, I remember a few years ago. I think it was the Ford F-150 put out a brand new truck, like top of the line truck, and look at all these extra features we have. You know, handy steps so that you don't have to jump onto the back of your truck. You could step up, and you know, there's even like a handle that you can pull out, and more cargo space, and you know, all these great accessories. And then what does Dodge come out and do? But point out how stupid and how flawed these unmanly features are. Completely tarnished and trashed all these cool accessories that Ford probably put a lot of money developing and thinking about. And it's just totally that those accessories don't exist anymore.
I remember the back step really clearly, and the Dodge commercial going like, "I guess if you're a lady, you can't get into the bed of your truck." Some kind of joke like that.
Yeah, and it's just, and I feel like this is Sony's chance to jump all over Xbox and point out all with very simple 20-second videos that probably cost them nothing to make fun of a very clear flaw. Anyways, probably a good time to move on. So, have you guys seen Fast and Furious 6 yet?
Honestly, I'm sad that I have not. I've been out of the country.
So I'm embarrassed to say that I've actually thoroughly enjoyed pretty much every single Fast and Furious movie so far. The first 5 I thoroughly enjoyed. This one came out and I thought they went 5 for 5. There's no way the 6th one can be good. I was very reluctant. I was very ambivalent to go see it, and I'm actually glad to say I was wrong. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. So we have the opening scene of Paul Walker and Vin Diesel charging down a highway on the side of a cliff in some exotic place in Europe. They have new lives built for themselves, and the rest of the team from the 5th movie are just living the easy life of millionaires. But then we move to The Rock at the scene of a new crime somewhere in Europe as well, where criminal teams known to be skilled getaway drivers, and The Rock is eventually forced to ask Vin Diesel and Paul Walker to team up with him to take down these new criminals in exchange for pardons that would allow Vin and Paul Walker back into the States, because now they can't go back. If I could use one word to describe this movie, it'd have to be ridiculous. just every single part of this movie was over the top insane. We have Vin Diesel doing flying headbutts. I'm not even kidding. He must have got about 5 feet of air at one point just to headbutt a guy who's about 7 feet tall. Another scene where Vin Diesel is again flying through the air to catch his ex-girlfriend midair and crash onto a car on the other side of a highway going at about 60 miles an hour. So over the top, ridiculous, insane. But it worked. It was a great movie. I allowed some, there's got to be a bit of suspension of disbelief. You got to kind of step back and go, okay, this would never happen, but I'm going to just surely enjoy it for the sake of it. Great cars in this movie. The sounds of these cars we're putting out were even better. Some new twists with some old characters returning. Letty, I don't know if you remember her. She's Vin Diesel's girlfriend who died, and I think the third or fourth movie she returns. Unnecessary but completely necessary explosions. So I would definitely recommend going to see this movie.
Go see this right now.
It's made ridiculous amounts of money. The reviews I've come across have been really good. Take it for what it is. It's a car movie. It's completely different from all the other Fast and the Furious movies too, which I found shocking. They've actually, time and time again, they've come out with a different story based on what's such a single, stupid little concept of street racing, that quarter-mile strip from the first movie.
But sometimes those work. First off, 2 points I want to say. Number one, best segue I've ever heard since I've been doing this podcast. By the time I think we should, at this time I think we should move on. Has anybody seen Fast and Furious 6? But it's kind of like it's like the A-Team principle. I grew up watching the A-Team, and I had an English teacher who spoke in a really strange, grovelly voice. He was Manny Legacy's backup back in the OHL for the Niagara Falls Thunder, so he's a goalie, so he knew he was kind of flaky. And he used to ask me when I told him I liked the A-Team, he said, Harkerneck, did you see that A-Team episode where somebody got kidnapped or they had a crisis and they had to make a plan and see if the plan would work, and then at the end they all survived and they accomplished their goals and nobody died? And it's like, well, yeah, every episode was the same formula. But sometimes that's fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fun to go to a theater and shut your brain off for 2 hours on $11. I don't mind that at all.
The crazy part is, I read one review of this movie on my favorite tech website, The Verge, which I think everyone should know. If you want to read about tech, you should read The Verge. They're kind of hipstery, but it's a great website. Anyway, the guy who's reviewing it completely hates action movies. And he's just like, I can't tell you why I like this movie. It's just amazing. The guy normally reviews art movies and stuff. And he's just like, this is just an amazing movie. I love it.
You take it for what it is, and it's a great movie. Watch it on Netflix. Go to theaters. However you do it, just take the 2 hours. You're right. Turn your brain off and watch it. My final rating, 4 out of 5. I'm not kidding. I'd give it a good rating.
Wow.
We get 4 Conor bow ties out of 5.
Yeah, 4 Conor bow ties out of 5. Is that the new scale?
That is an impressive rating. That is the new scale. So you heard it here, folks. Starting this week, we've got the new bow tie scale for future movie reviews.
That beat Star Trek then? That beat Star Trek.
No.
So was Star Trek at 3.5?
No. I think I gave it 4.5. Actually, 4 definitely. Okay. So completely different movies though, for completely polar reasons. Enjoy Star Trek for your space, space sci-fi fantasy kind of guy. Enjoy or enjoy Fast and the Furious because it's awesome. It's awesome.
Where did they hang over pre-place in all of this?
Do you know what? I haven't seen it. I've heard it's absolutely terrible.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it's terrible, but the marketing behind it is pretty awesome. I'm not sure what to expect. I really want to go watch it, but I've heard so much crap about the movie. I'm just like, meh.
Do you know what? I think this kind of speaks, again, back to sort of that whole marketing piece is you can build on your brand and use that equity to push your movie. And there was a lot of hype around this movie. And I think a lot of people were expecting it to do poorly. It's a third one. They probably won't be able to do well again. But people were still talking about it and probably still want to see it. I personally haven't seen it. I probably will never see it. But yeah, you're right. It's amazing what you can do with sort of building on that legacy value of look what we did before. You liked it then. Come see what we did again.
Speaking of hype, tomorrow, my birthday, Man of Steel comes out in theaters, and I don't think I've been this excited for a superhero movie in quite some time. And if anybody can revitalize that brand, Zack Snyder, and I believe Abrams is involved in that as well, right?
Yeah,
J.J. Abrams. Very, very, very pumped.
I have to at least make an attempt to study for fun. I can't just... I can't just go watch. And I know I never watch movies the day they come out. Generally, I'm the kind of person who likes to have a seat empty beside me or a seat empty in front of me, throw my legs on. I'm considering going to go watch that movie like midnight tonight if there's a midnight screening. But I should at least give some semblance of an effort to pretend that I care about finance, which I do. I really do care about finance. But Superman looks amazing. This is going to be the best superhero movie this year.
I completely agree. And considering how cheesy the old Superman movies have been, and even with think about Batman, they were really cheesy, and they weren't superhero movies. They were just movies for the sake of doing a movie, and then they really turned it around with the last 3 most recent ones, and I think this is a very easy chance to turn the movie franchise around. Hopefully, let us forget about that Superman movie with Kevin Spacey 7 years ago, which was absolutely terrible.
I was going to say, you guys don't like Superman 4, Quest for Peace? When he took all the nuclear weapons and put them in a big net and threw them into the sun? That didn't do it for you?
Or when Superman flies around the Earth in reverse and manages to turn back time.
Or when Richard Pryor is a video game junkie in Superman 3. Yeah, Richard Pryor to Superman. Doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, there's been some poor quality movies. But,
So, big telecom news.
Yeah, apparently about a week or so back, you've probably all read this or heard about this. If not, this is great news for all the people that do have cell phones. It's no longer 3 years for a cell phone. It's now 2 years for a contract, and you can buy out of it if you have a phone. The one thing that I really liked was the fact that when you get your phone, after 90 days, you can unlock it. So if you travel, you can use a SIM card in another country. Use their network and such, and they really listen to what consumers had to say and complain about, and they've tried to make some changes, make contracts easier to use and read, and for people to understand. If you go away, you don't get charged roaming charges and such. So I think it's a great improvement, but they're still way behind the rest of the world in terms of cell phone contracts and providing those services.
So from what I understand, it's going to take place in December. It's going to take effect for all contracts signed, I think, from December on. And it doesn't. They can still technically ask you to sign a 3-year, right? But after 2 years, you're allowed to get out of them.
You're allowed to get out, so you don't have to pay a cancellation fee. But what no one's really talking about is that you still owe money on the phone.
Yeah.
So usually what happens is you buy into a 3-year contract, and you might get a $0 phone or a $50 phone that's originally $600. Well, what the claim is that by having that 3-year contract, you pay off the value of that phone. But if you decide to leave after 2 years, chances are there's probably still $150 to $300 that you still owe the phone company on that phone.
I think it's interesting. If you look at, I used to work at Fido, which is a division of Rogers, and even while I was there, they were slowly transitioning away from the 3-year contract. Basically, they only sell 3-year contracts on iPhones. And when I remember asking one of the regional managers, and actually I met the president of Rogers Retail, I'm like, why do we still do this for iPhones? And they said, what we actually pay for an iPhone hardware is somewhere close to $600. And we sell it for somewhere around $610 to $650. So depending on the model of iPhone, we either make $3 or $4 or at most $25. That's what they used to do in the past. He's like, but now, moving since the iPhone, I think it was a 4S at the time, he's like, we make $0 on all iPhones. We sell all iPhones at exactly break-even cost. So he's like, I can't give you an iPhone on a 2-year because you'll never be able to I'll never be able to get the subsidy for you to pay me back for that in that time. So what they're doing instead is they're going, everything else can go to 2-year. If you go to them right now and you go buy a high-end Android phone, they'll charge you $250 or $300 up front because they're going to subsidize the cost of the remaining $300 over the 2 years. Mm-hmm. I think if people just had the option to pay for devices full price and they saw what they actually cost to buy devices full price, there would be less complaints about contracts in general. Because no one wants to pay those kinds of unsubsidized prices.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we see how much really gets sort of paid down on using contracts. But regardless, I think there's still a lot that the CRTC can do to really improve things here.
I didn't know about that unlocking thing, though, either, though.
I didn't know about that.
That would be very helpful. When I went over to the Olympics last year in London, I just ended up buying a completely new phone from Vodafone. It was a cheap and expensive device. But I was unable to unlock my BlackBerry to put in a UK SIM card. That would have been something that would have been very nice to have. And so I could have kept all my my contacts and phone capabilities with the phone I like without having to,
Because it's a brilliant scheme, though, right? If you can't unlock your phone, then you can't use it in a foreign country. And then when you go to the foreign country and you do use your phone, then you charge like $100 a minute, and they make like $3,000 and have like 4 phone calls.
So that's the other thing that they've come into. That's going to come into effect is the fact that if you're away and you're getting charged for, let's say, data or roaming, they're capping it off at, I think it was $50, so that you don't come back and you have a $1,000 bill, just to avoid surprises and such.
Well, that was the only bad thing about my Boston trip. I came back happier than hell and probably still trying to detox from all the booze, and then I look at my phone bill and it's about 3 times as much as it usually is on a month. Welcome back from Massachusetts. Yeah, that was a nice gift.
But do you know what they're doing for when they cap it? Are they just stopping your service? Or are they just saying you can have... whenever you're traveling, travel packages always just cost the maximum of X.
What they're doing is I think they will either notify you and stop your service. But if you do want to continue using it, you have the option to pay more, and then when you come back, at least you are aware of and you were given that option. So the whole thing behind this is actually giving the consumer the option to choose whether they want to pay more for something as opposed to surprising them with something.
Yeah, I think this is something that's kind of been long overdue in the cell phone industry. And hopefully, if it doesn't, we never get to that European model where you just buy phones, they're all unlocked, you pick your plan provider. But even what they're doing right now in the States on T-Mobile, if we can get that up here, I'd be pretty happy. They introduced this in January. It's called their Un-Carrier plans. Basically, if you already own a phone or you pay full price for a phone, if they're not subsidizing your phone, they just take $20 off whatever plan you pick. Because realistically, that's where that money goes to. That money goes to subsidizing you to have a $700 phone or like a $650 iPhone. So if you say, I don't want one, I just want to get phone service, they're like, okay, pay $20 less.
They're probably better off that way too.
Yeah, they don't have to deal with negotiating these large contracts with the manufacturer and losing money when they get those deals. And they don't have to subsidize your phone and have some like... Because a lot of these plans, even when they're subsidized, if something happens, they have to give you a new one. They have to just give you that. Like when I worked at Fido, if you had a phone and it was defective within the first 90 days, we just gave you a new one. So it was like you had a $700 phone, it's defective, we just give you another one. It's like we just wasted we didn't waste, we just spent $1,200 on this customer, and if that customer doesn't stay long enough you can just stay for 6 years now because we factored over a 3-year period.
I'm just waiting for the phone companies to come up with a program that will verify for me if I get a number from a lady at a bar and it's fake, and they can tell me I didn't waste my time. That's what I'm waiting for the providers to do for me. Other than that, I don't really care.
Well, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at What's Up DeGroote and like us on Facebook. If you want to contact us directly, email whatsupdegroot@gmail.com with any questions or comments you have. This is What's Up DeGroote signing off.